Hi there, welcome to the YouTube channel of the International Society for First World War Studies. I'm Chris Kempshall, the Society President. The video that you're about to watch is a recording of an event that we did earlier this year to announce the upcoming Society conference that's going to be in Greece in October. In this recording, you'll see details about the conference's theme and how to submit proposals, along with some exciting things that will be running along at the same time. In the description of this video, you'll find a link to the call for papers and some details about how to join the Society itself. We hope you enjoy the video and we hope to see you in Greece in October. Hello and welcome everybody to the latest edition of our ongoing event program for the International Society for First World War Studies. I'd like to say welcome to everybody who's here in the room with us. Thank you all very much indeed for coming along this evening or afternoon, depending on depending upon whereabouts in the world you are. To those of you who are on the members list who are tuning into this afterwards because you couldn't make it, it's lovely to see you. Lovely to kind of have you tune into the recording afterwards. And if you are watching this on the Society YouTube channel, a huge welcome to you. Now, the purpose of this event is going to be talking about the Society's conference for 2025, and that'll be the main focus. But towards the end of this event, I'll be talking a little bit about the International Society as a whole, some of the things that we do, some of the things that we offer to members and the like. So if anybody here, either watching on YouTube or here in the room, isn't a member of the Society at the moment, then we would be delighted to welcome you as one of us to kind of join the Society and have access to the wonderful things that we will do. But to begin with, I would like to talk a little bit about the event itself, discussions about the conference. Before we get to those, I would like to give a wholehearted welcome and thank you to Dr. Sofya Anisimova, who is one of the conference organisers. I'll invite her shortly to talk a little bit about the conference, but Sofya, please introduce yourself to the watching people both in the room and in the recording. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your research and your role in the Society.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sofya Anisimova. I'm a postdoctoral research fellow at the University College Dublin, and I've been a member of the Society since 2018, since my master's year. And now I am a membership secretary of the Society and and one of the organizers of the conference, as Chris already said. I'm a researcher of Russia in the First World War. I defended my PhD thesis at the University of Sandhurst in 2023, dedicated to Russian military strategy in the First World War. And currently here in Dublin, I'm working in a kind of Great War framework, researching Russian participation in the Civil War and Soviet thought about the First World War and Civil War in the 1920s.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you very much. I also realised that I neglected to introduce myself. I'm Chris Kempshall. I'm the president of the International Society for First World War Studies, and I will be kind of acting as compare for this event. So let's talk a little bit about the conference itself. Before we start going into the details of the kind of call for papers and some of the itinerary and the like, I thought that now might be a good opportunity, Sofya, for you to announce who our exciting keynote speakers are for the conference coming later this year.
Yes, so we got two speakers confirmed as keynote speakers for this conference, and they will be Professor Heather Jones of UCL and Professor Hugh Strawn from the University of Sandhurst, and my research supervisor, both of whom I'm pretty sure are very well known to you, and will be talking to us, who will be talking to kind of more naval side of their research. Professor Heather Jones is currently finishing a book about experience of people around the area of Mediterranean Sea, the experience of the war. So she'll be talking about that. And Professor Strawn will be talking about Gallipoli and amphibious operations in the Great War and kind of their impact on strategical thinking at the time.
Both of those sound fantastic, and I'm looking forward to it already. So the conference itself, when is it? What's the theme? What's the deal?
Right. First of all, about the dates. So the conference is going to take place from 1st to 3rd of October 2025. This is Wednesday to Friday. And those dates are selected so it allows for an additional kind of bonus excursion field trip to the island of Lemnos at the weekend, 4th and 5th of October, about which I'm happy to talk more in a minute. I appreciate that the date might not be kind of perfect for everyone. Somewhere the semester already starts, somewhere the semester is about to begin. But those dates were selected in part to in coordination with the host in Thessaloniki. And for those of you who have been and who will come to Thessaloniki, this is a wonderful place that hosts many events throughout the summer, and September is still the season for Thessaloniki in that part of Greece for tourists to come. So mid-September would be much more expensive. Plus, there is an expo in Thessaloniki in mid-September. So that's one of the reasons why it's kind of got pushed to October. If you compare to kind of other conference dates, they think they were a bit earlier than this, but this is what we settled on. And a couple of words about the theme. I appreciate there might be questions about the theme of the conference. It's slightly unusual, and it's seas. As you might have noticed, I'm not a naval historian myself, but there was an understanding that whilst we talk a lot about kind of land aspect of the war, we don't really appreciate the naval aspect of the war as much in the society and as a field as well. When we talk about Thessaloniki, and the research dedicated to Thessaloniki is often dedicated to, Thessaloniki as a base for the Salonika front, and maybe not as much on the city, but on the kind of on the front line itself in the mountains. Well, so Thessaloniki was a very important port in the war, so we thought we'll bring attention to that, and kind of will give an opportunity for people to kind of maybe develop that side, that naval maritime aspect of their own research, which they've never kind of found a good pretext to develop themselves. So that's the idea behind it.
I'm shocked to hear that the International Society Conference was not as important to Thessaloniki as the expo that they host in September September every year. So in regards to kind of some of these details that you've been talking about with the theme being about of sea, how, and you've already kind of touched upon it a little bit, how broadly are we defining sea in this instance?
So it's specifically kind of defined as kind of seas, even without an article. It's to be as broad as possible. So if you had a look at the previous conference topics of the society, you'll also see that they formulated it in a very kind of broad one-word way, like borders or legacies, to bring together as many perspectives as we can. And then the call for papers, which was circulated, we also kind of gave an idea of what's going to be there. And it's pretty much everything, beginning with, good old naval history and ending up with environmental history of ports and seas, of the social history of the Navy. So any aspect that's even remotely connected with water, pretty much. If they're going to be a paper on the lakes in the Great War, I think it will be very enthusiastically received by the selection committees. And so it's pretty much, as I said, as you often work, it's based on my own experience as well. When you flick through the material in the archives, right, and you search for the material that's relevant for you research, and if it's not connected to the naval stuff, you just flick through this naval kind of aspect. If there's going to be several pages on the naval experiences or maritime experiences, you just flick through it until you get to the part that you really need. So this is a conference to maybe kind of take a step back and go back to this kind of naval material that you encountered through your research, and kind of try to make use of it, and kind of force a conversation about it, and force a kind of conversation between kind of full-scale, full-blown naval historians and the historians who maybe were not interested in navies and maritime aspects of the war as much, but kind of just to invite everyone to think together about it.
I think your point about kind of some of the overlooked bits and pieces is quite an interesting one, because certainly when I was doing my Allied relations stuff, I found quite a few bits and pieces about Americans traveling on British ships across the Atlantic during kind of 1917, 1918, which they kind of made it in to the actual final study, but not in a huge way, because I was focused on different other bits. But when we consider the fact that it is a world war, quite a lot of that world is traveling in some way by sea. Once you get off of mainland Europe, everything is naval based in regards to travel. So there's quite a lot of kind of scope and aspects in that to get into. And I'm kind of looking here at the the call for papers, which we will endeavour to put a link to in the chat shortly, and I will also endeavour to put a link to in the description on YouTube for anybody who's interested in it. But reading down the call for papers: naval and maritime history of the war, amphibious operations, port cities and coastal areas, maritime journeys during the war, economics and logistics, naval and maritime technology, naval thinking and naval theories developed during and after the war, social and cultural histories of all belligerent navies, civilians at sea during the war, commemoration and memory of maritime aspects of the war, representation of naval aspects of the war in art, literature, film, computer games, etc. Environmental history of the seas and coastal areas during the war. That's a very broad definition that is going to be useful to people.
I'd like to highlight another phrase in the call for papers, which says that potential subjects may include, but not limited to. So we're very, very open to, as I said, anything that has even a loose connection with the main kind of topic of the conference. We'll still be very, very happy to consider it in the committee and make sure that kind of this research kind of is given its like the attention that it deserves. So that's the main idea behind it.
Talking a little bit about kind of the structure of the conference. Now, several of us have been to society conferences before and understand how it works. But for those of you who might be kind of joining for the first time or haven't had the chance to go to a society conference, how does the setup work? How do you kind of envisage the experience of being here? What are people going to see? How are they going to write their papers and present their papers?
So this conference, in terms of kind of format, is going to follow the standard format that the society used in the previous years. It's going to be a kind of single room conference and no simultaneous panels. All presenters are going to be in one room going kind of through together for 3 days. It's like a summer camp, autumn camp for historians in many ways. Single room conference with pre-circulated papers. So it's the deadline for the proposals is 1st of May, and we will ask all the participants to share their papers with us by 1st of September. Draft papers, of course, we're not expecting anything finished, and the papers that we require, the draft papers that we require, are not going to exceed 3,000 word limit. So it is a fairly kind of short and sharp papers, but to maximize the time for the discussion at the panels themselves, we will ask to pre-circulate. Following the format of previous conferences, we will also offer some guidance and mentoring for early career researchers. However, the exact configuration of that mentorship will depend on the final program and the number of postgraduates and early career researchers that we're dealing with, a number of more senior researchers who will be offering that mentorship as well. So that will be communicated closer to the conference itself.
You touched upon there about kind of early career researchers and kind of PhD students. Now, traditionally, the Society Conference has always been an opportunity for PhD students and early career researchers. I mean, at the last conference in Windsor, Ontario, I'm pretty sure that there was an undergraduate student presenting a paper there, which was an amazing paper. So we've always had a space, or wanted the conference to be a space, for early career researchers and PhD students to kind of, or before that point, to present their research there. And obviously, clearly that's something that you're keen to replicate, particularly with the mentoring scheme that you're talking about. But is the conference just for early career researchers and PhD students, or is there room for more?
Thank you very much, Chris, for this question, because we're already getting this question via different routes. No, the conference is not just for early career and postgraduate researchers. We're very keen to make sure that the conference has a big variety of scholars, and if you are a mid-career or more senior established scholar and you're thinking whether to come or not, please come, please participate. Society has always been a platform, in my experience, a platform to bring people together, and it works if we bring both sides together rather than just the postgraduates. And I think we made it clear in a call for papers. And we have events specifically for postgraduates. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, and if you are a postgraduate or early career scholar, please kind of look into like our events specifically tailored for you. But this conference is going to be for everyone.
Fantastic.
It's the main goal is to, advance the scholarship, of course. So that's the gist.
What I'd also say, so my first society conference was I'm going to massively age myself and kind of, it was in 2008 at the Imperial War Museum. And it was one of my first kind of, or was it 2009? It was 2008, 2009 time, at the Imperial War Museum, and was one of my first kind of conferences of any kind. And what I liked about, or was turned out to be hugely important for me, as a PhD student, at the time, was the presence of a variety of professors and mid-career researchers. I actually get to meet some of the people who I'd read books by in the years leading up to it, and kind of discuss ideas, and having them in the room asking questions, or kind of chairing panels, or kind of being discussants on papers was fantastic. It was hugely valuable. So in that instance, kind of firstly for the early career and PhDs who are watching this, there is a great opportunity to meet some of the kind of the leading figures in the field when you come to these conferences, but also to the leading figures in the field who are sat here in the Zoom room with us, or kind of will hopefully be coming along to the conference. The very fact that you come to these conferences and you interact with kind of the new emerging historians and scholars in the room is wonderful. It's hugely appreciated, certainly by them and definitely by the society. So we will always be very pleased to welcome those of you who have kind of completed your PhDs and have kind of moved on to mid-career or late career status.
As a master's student, Chris, who presented her first paper in a Melbourne conference, that was incredibly helpful, and like the amount of confidence building and kind of confidence boost that this conference gave me as a scholar to go and pursue my PhD was incredible. So we will still be doing that, but we will give platform and kind of to everyone.
And all you had to do was travel to the other side of the world,
yes,
to go all the way down to Melbourne. So you talked a little bit about how kind of the papers will work, and the kind of the proposal will be a necessary part of that. How does this proposal system work? What's the setup? What's the infrastructure for it?
So we set up a special email account where all the proposals will be gathered. So if you go to the call for papers, you'll see it, but it's basically the abbreviation of the International Society, ISFWWS 2025@gmail.com, where all the proposals will go, and then the academic committee will sit down and select the proposal to fill up the program for 3 days. We're planning 3 pretty much kind of full days of the conference as usual, with a society AGM included, and 2 keynotes as we have promised.
So we've got the kind of the conference going over 3 days, and we'll talk a little bit about the possible excursion shortly. Obviously, international conferences aren't necessarily cheap, depending on where you're coming from. So even just here looking at the Zoom room, I can see somebody here from New Zealand. I can see multiple people here from Canada. I can see one person here from the United States. And, we're an international society. We're always going to look to have exciting international conferences. What kind of considerations have been taken by the organising committee to try and mitigate some of the cost?
Right. We appreciate that it's quite expensive. So, and the international travel is expensive, and that is an expensive time for that part of the world to travel as well. So thanks to our partners, the University of Macedonia and Thessaloniki, who kindly agreed to host us, they also agreed to provide accommodation for participants, which will be, I think, standard hotel rooms in Thessaloniki, close to the venue. And the venue is going to be the university itself. So very generously, and it's quite unusual for the conferences of the society, or conferences in general, the accommodation will be provided. In terms of assistance with travel, there will be several bursaries available, but they will be available to postgrads, early career, or unaffiliated scholars. So unfortunately, the funds are there, but the funds are limited, so we have to prioritize those who might not have access to any external funding. I would like to assure everyone kind of in the room, that we're not, if you are the members of the society, we're not spending your money unwisely. So none kind of all the money that society is giving to the conference is going to be kind of spent on postgraduate travel and kind of facilitating this, rather than kind of no nonsense, no fancy dinners or anything. So even though it's very tempting. Right. So there was a question about what else is going to be provided in terms of kind of very practical elements, such as transfers to the venue, and so on and so forth. So if I understand well, kind of we reached an understanding with the organizers that the accommodation will be provided close to the venue, so there will be no need to transfer to the venue kind of every day of the conference. In terms of kind of, well, flights, as I said, they're not going to be provided, but transfers from the airport, I imagine people will be arriving at different times, right? So we will not be able to cover those transfers, but the organizers on the ground will be very happy to facilitate and help with people organizing those transfers and advise on taxis. And if there will be people arriving together, we'll see what we'll be able to do. But it's very unlikely that this kind of cost will be covered. So the main provision is, of course, accommodation and catering. Catering, of course, will be provided on site, and breakfast is going to be available at the hotel. So that's what's definitely going to be covered. And there is another perk, as I have mentioned, that the organizer also offering to take participants of the conference on a weekend trip to the island of Lemnos, which, as you know, played also a very important role in that region in the First World War, mostly as an evacuation base for the Gallipoli Corps. And the exact details of how it's going to be organized will be available closer to the date. There will be an additional fee for it, but the amount of that fee we're going to know kind of closer to the date, because the organizer did not tell us yet the prices, but we understand it's going to be around several €100. So it's not going to be €1,000. It's not going to be very unlikely to be more than kind of €300-400 extra. No, gosh, what I'm saying, probably even less than that, because it's only 2 days. What? It's going to be a boat transfer to the island, and they're going to be a hotel provided there as well. So that's, I imagine it's going to be maybe €200. So it's a yeah. So that's the gist. With that, we don't know exactly. We don't know the details, but there might be available kind of subsidized fees as well for early career researchers and so on and so forth. But that, again, that's completely on our kind of Greek part of the organization committee.
Sounds very similar to the excursion into the mountains in the Italian conference, which sadly I wasn't there for, where there was an extra element. If you wanted to experience it at altitude, you could go for an adventure in the a guided tour in the mountains. That must have been in 2017, something like that. I think that conference around that point. There's always been like the conference basically is a bonus for membership. Traditionally the only registration cost for the kind of the access cost for the society has been or for the conference has been to be a member. Will that be the case for this one as well?
We're keeping that. So there is no registration fee kind of anticipated. So all you have to do is to be the member of the society at the time of the conference, and that's pretty much it. So I'm a membership secretary, and I want to say that I should know how much the membership is. But
it's around £30 or £40, I think.
I don't know whether I think it's £35 the full rate, and it's £25 discounted rate. Will there be an organized tour of Thessaloniki? If there is a demand for it, they can be easily arranged, because our co-organizers on the ground is Professor Vlasis Vlasidis, who is also a tour guide and one of the most experienced people who know Thessaloniki and who know also the area of Salonika front quite well. So currently it's not kind of put in a conference program, but I imagine if there will be enough demand, that can be organized. However, I have to say that no trips to the mountains, to the Salonika front, like organized by the conference organizers, are currently envisaged. So the focus is on the seas, and that's why the offered field trip is the field trip to Lemnos rather than to the battlefields in the mountains.
That makes perfect sense. So I think that, between the conversation that me and you have been having, we've touched upon quite a few kind of various aspects of the conference itself, and we've kind of also touched upon a couple of the questions that were submitted via people through the Eventbrite in advance. But I'm also very happy to, as we've just had a question from Alison, open up the floor to anybody here in the room for any questions or queries about the conference, or kind of discussions that people want to have about, or kind of ideas about papers or proposals, or effectively anything that people want to ask. And you can put those in the chat if you like, or use some of the Zoom functionality in regards to raising hands and the like.
Before we get the questions from the audience, I'll answer a question which I received just before we went into the recording, and that was the question about shipbuilding. Will we consider papers on shipbuilding? Absolutely, we will. Yes, on shipping, on shipbuilding, on anything, as I said, anything even remotely related to the seas, and the kind of maritime aspect of the war. It's going to be considered.
That sounds like a great paper. So a question from Justin Fantauzo in the chat. For those coming from abroad and unfamiliar with travel in the region, is it best to fly directly into Thessaloniki?
There is an airport in Thessaloniki, which actually serves lots of destinations in Europe. I don't believe there are flights from the States, for instance, who will go directly to Thessaloniki. They will have to be changed in Athens. But during the season, there are many flights from different European destinations, which offers for the people coming from afar options in terms of where to make a stopover. But yes, it's worth kind of flying if you are going. Thessaloniki is your kind of first stop on a circuit. It's easy enough to fly into Thessaloniki. It's close to the city centers. Well, it's about, I don't know, 20 minutes in a car direct
okay.
town. So it's because we held another conference as part of our Dublin project. We recently held a conference in a different university in Thessaloniki, in Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, and that was fairly easy to travel and access. We also had conference participants who were flying from the States. That was with the change in Athens, that's pretty accessible.
Fantastic. So Alison is saying in the chat that, Justin, it's much cheaper to fly into Athens and take a train. Although given Justin's research background, I'm anticipating him undertaking a long sea voyage across the entirety of the Mediterranean, and then eventually finishing up in
maybe our next level of a conference, we should put everyone on a cruise.
Yeah, I can see people getting on board with that. We've got a question from Dr. Jagdish saying, how narrowly is the maritime focus being defined? Are riverine and littoral aspects permissible?
Absolutely, yes. Littoral aspects actually are mentioned in the call for papers as well. And as I said, kind of river and lake and freshwater entities are also kind of very welcome and cover fall under the remit of the conference. There was a question, however, before we began, is about, will there be any conferences, any papers, any panels, sorry, with no connection to the sea? I appreciate in some big conferences, for instance, in the kind of SMH, Society for Military History conferences, there can be a big theme for the conference, but then there will be panels who are not connected to the theme, and that will be absolutely fine. Well, the difference is that Society for Military History usually has 400 panels in 3 days, and we will probably have, I don't even know, maybe 12 the best, like at best, panels in 3 days. So that's why we probably cannot afford to have panels on separate topics. But as I said, even remote connection with the topic will be considered. So we invite you kind of to have a look at your research, and very, very likely you'll find something that will be connected to the topic. Another kind of point of note which kind of comes to mind, in case you are traveling from outside of European Union and you require visa, the conference organizers, of course, will be happy to provide you with a letter and all kind of documentation on our side that we need, that we kind of have to provide. So just get in touch with us to get this sorted, but just to kind of get this question out of the line.
So, if there were any last questions or thoughts from our gathered audience, and if not, I'll just keep a quick eye on the chat. I want to talk a little bit about things that are going on in the society at the moment, because again, you may be watching this as a long-standing member of the society, and we love you for it, whether you're here in the room or watching on a recording. But you may also be looking to join the society for the first time, simply for the conference, or interested in the types of things that we do. So as the president, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've got going on in the society at the moment. And one of the things that I want to flag up straight away, particularly for the people who are gathered here, is that the society's small grants applications for up to £1,500 to support the hosting of events are still open at the moment. Now, at least one applicant must be a current member of the society to apply for those. But we've extended the deadline for them for this round until Thursday, the 10th of February, 2025. Applications will be assessed by the Society's Grants Committee, and all applicants will be informed of the outcome no later than the 1st of April. Now, the regulations are provided below, and this is a thing I'll put in the chat momentarily, in English and in French, and orchestrated by David Munger through our mailing list. Now, to give you some indication as to what some of those grants have been spent on in previous years, there was a conference to mark the centenary of the Greek-Turkish War at the University of Patras. There was a postgraduate workshop on violence in the First World War hosted by the University of Leeds and Bradford Peace Museum. There was a symposium for early career researchers held at the Institute of Historical Research in London, organised by Sofya. A conference on military welfare at University College Dublin. So if you are working on an idea at the moment and you're thinking that an event around it might be a good idea or might be worth pursuing, then I would strongly encourage members to apply to bid for those £1,500 grants. We, as a society, we like to try and help the dissemination of your research and the connections that you can make, and there is a great benefit to having events in person, and where possible we will try and kind of assist people who are bidding for those. So if you are thinking of something along those lines, then absolutely apply for those for those grants. To give people an understanding or an idea of some of the stuff that's going on in the background. So we're 1 year now into my presidential term, and much of last year was spent kind of creating the framework for an assortment of new ideas and initiatives that we are now looking to roll out across this year. Very high up on that at the moment is that our society website is undergoing a redesign and a redevelopment, with the aim for a new website to be ready for launch by the summer, which will hopefully be far more kind of flexible and responsive than the current website that we have is, which we are very much looking forward to our shiny new website that is being developed. Myself, Alison Bennett, who is here in the audience, who is our PhD representative, and Julia Ribeiro Tomas, who is our early career researcher representative, have been working on a mentoring program for members of the society who are early career researchers, those who are post PhD up until about 5 years post Viva, which would involve them being mentored for a period of time, maybe 9 to 12 months, by a more senior member of the society. We've been working on the guidelines for that behind the scenes over the last couple of months. We've got some meetings coming up to kind of formalize those and then present them to the board of directors and the executive committee, with an eye to rolling those out possibly for later this year, maybe towards this kind of the start of the new academic year. So that is going to be a brand new program that we will be designing explicitly to help early career researchers within the society through mentoring programs with more senior society members. Myself and Chris Batten have been working on the framework and guidelines for an undergraduate essay prize for the society that would involve potentially an undergraduate essay being published in some form in the society journal, potential prizes involved around that. We've almost finished the guidelines for that as well. Again, I'll be presenting those to some potential judges and the board of directors and the executive committee. But again, the aim of that is to have that rolled out by probably the summer, around kind of dissertation submission period. So those of you who have undergraduate teaching, who might be kind of supervising dissertations and like, absolutely keep an eye out for that, and let your students know when we announce it, because we would love to start kind of recognizing some of the amazing undergraduate work that is going on through undergraduate students and that you yourself as members are supervising. We've also been having ongoing monthly events for all of our members. We're sat in one at the moment as part of our offering to society members to say, you know, every single month we will have at least one online event, whether it's be a discussion at a society conference like this. We've had representatives from the Imperial War Museum come in and talk to us. We had the historian from Lucasfilm come and talk to us. People who are lined up kind of in discussion with things at the moment, the National World War I Museum in America, National Army Museum in London. We're also hopefully going to arrange another open event around the society bibliography, which is just the most wonderful resource imaginable. So we'll be talking to Franziska Heimberger, who is our webmaster, about coming in and talking to us about that. We've also recently installed a new member of the executive committee whose role it will be, Nina Regis, to coordinate a lot of our event program going forward. So if you join the society, every single month there will be some form of event, at least one, designed to enhance your knowledge, offer knowledge exchange, skills exchange, interesting opportunities to find out more about the society or other organizations and the like. Our plan is to keep that rolling out in perpetuity now, that will just continue to exist. In parallel, alongside those, and again, largely organized by Alison Bennett and Julie Ribeiro Tomas, is a series of events targeted towards the needs and the interests of our PhD and early career researcher members. So in the last few months, we had Pierre Pesegel come and talk to an audience about his experience as sitting on panels of the UK job market, of hiring committees and like, and what he's learned from that and what might be useful to PhD students and early career researchers. Similarly, last month we did an exactly the same setup, but with somebody coming to talk to us about the French job market. We're an international society, you know, we're not just, it's not, whilst I'm sat here in England, it's not just an English institution. So we would hopefully look to contact people, or if there were anybody here in the audience who would be willing to do one in America or Canada or other parts of Europe, think, you know, I've sat on hiring committees, or I have information that might be useful from my country for PhD students and early career researchers, then absolutely contact me. We would love to organise an event around what you can pass on to some of our younger members of the society. So all of those are things that we have ongoing and going forwards, but we're always kind of looking for new ways to kind of enhance the offering to ensure that, you know, when you spend the 35, 40 pounds or so of membership fee, that you get as much for your money as you can. You know, you get access to the journal, you get access to the mailing list, you get access to our events program, you get access to the conference. We want to ensure that you get something from your membership, that you enjoy being members. And if you're not a member already, and if any of the things I've spoken about today sound like they might be of interest to you or of use to you in enhancing your research or enhancing your kind of your career plans, then we would love to welcome you to the International Society and hope that you can find a home here. We're not just a historical society. We're not, again, just because I'm a historian does not mean that we are purely interested in the historical aspects of the First World War. Even in the discussions of the conference today, we just had a prolonged kind of discussion about kind of the literary aspects of the sea and how it might relate to the First World War. You know, we're interested in literature studies, we're interested in art history, we're interested in geography, philosophy, anything that relates to the First World War. We'd like to think that you'll find a home here in the International Society. So I've put in the chat again for anybody who isn't already a member, a link for how to join the society. If you have any questions or queries or kind of any issues in regards to joining the society, again, you are more than welcome to email me. I'll put the links for some of those material, the kind of the email address for the president in the YouTube notes as well. For everybody else who is here, either kind of drop me a message in the chat, or if you're already a member of the society and there's anything you want to discuss, you're always welcome to email me through the mailing list. I'd like to thank Sofya for coming along and giving up some of her time this evening to talk to us about what is looking like it's going to be a hugely exciting conference. I'm already really looking forward to, not just simply because I get to come to Greece for 5 or so days. I'd like to thank everybody here who, again, took time out of your afternoons, your evenings, your mornings, depending on where you are in the world, which, or at least for Caroline in New Zealand, is pretty sure it's going to be morning. Thank you all very much indeed. We are always delighted to have so many members of the society turn out. We hope that you're enjoying things that are going on in the society. And I really, really hope that I'll see a decent chunk of you either at our next monthly event, which I'm still working on the framework for, but more importantly, at our Society Conference in Thessaloniki in October. Have a lovely rest of the day or beginning of the day, depending on where you are. And thank you all very much for coming.